In this section, we are going to work on the issue of compatibility, which is the first characteristic you should look at when looking for your ideal partner. You would be surprised by the number of people I have had to deal with over the years who entered into a romantic relationship with someone with whom they were not compatible. And as you can guess, that was a recipe for disaster. As I tell you, the reasons why one enters a relationship with someone who is incompatible are many. We are not going to go into that topic here. Rather, we are going to work on the topic of how you can recognize and accept when someone is compatible with you. To do this, the first factor that you must recognize and accept may be the most obvious to you, but as you will see, it is not. This factor is whether you physically like that person. In practice, it is about defining whether there is chemistry. I am sure that over the years, you entered into romantic relationships with people you didn't like, in the same way that you rejected people you did like from a physical point of view. I want you to take a moment and think about those people that you did like physically, but whom you lost because either you didn't realize that a relationship could exist between you or you unconsciously denied it. So, the first step you should take is to accept when you like someone, but also accept when you don't like someone. If I tell you this, it is because this is a factor that causes many problems when choosing a partner. I get into a relationship with someone I don't like because that person activates in me either some kind of guilt complex because I don't accept those I don't like, or some kind of savior complex, in the sense that I force myself to help people in misfortune. And what happens when you do like someone? Well, sometimes the undervaluation complex is activated that leads you to believe that you are not good enough to be with that person you do like. So you end up putting that person on a pedestal and stop seeing how great you are. I remember a case I had a long time ago of a person who felt a lot of physical attraction for a woman, but he had a budding friendship with another woman who he didn't find so pretty. But what happened? The not so pretty woman manipulated him into being with her. And just when he started the relationship, the other person, the one he found attractive, let him know that she was interested in him. In that process, he stayed with the woman he didn't like, instead of giving himself the opportunity to be with someone who was physically more attractive to him. But as you can see, due to the unconscious complexes that one comes with, he refrains from being with the person who does generate more pleasant physical sensations. So from now on, please accept your desires and instincts. I am going to work on all this about the complexes of the unconscious in another program. The second factor that you must consider so that you can know if there is compatibility is whether there is complicity between you. Deep down, if you really enjoy being with that person, if you have a topic of conversation, if you laugh when you are with her or him, and if you understand each other very quickly. I am sure that throughout your life, you met people with whom you could spend hours talking without any difficulty in doing so. But what happens if you are in front of a person with whom you feel uncomfortable? You don't know what to talk about, or you even always end up talking about what is happening with him or her. This is important because if you think about it, there are many people who try too hard to be with someone because they apparently like them from a physical point of view. The case of the young man who likes a woman and does everything possible to look like her. but in that process, he loses his own identity. I had the case of a person who felt very physically attracted to a woman, but had nothing to talk to her about. He tried really hard to have something to talk to her about, but the topic just didn't come up. The other case I worked on was that of a person who was very attracted to a woman, and they also spent hours talking. They really enjoyed everything they had to say to each other. But what happened? His undervaluing complex was activated, and this led him to believe that she was never going to give him a chance. If you look, he had two characteristics out of three. That's why he consulted me. And in his consultation, I helped him overcome that complex and dare to talk to her. What he did, with which he found his ideal partner. But because he was so clear about the compatibility from the beginning that this compatibility existed. So the idea is that when you meet someone, talk to that person and see if you feel good when interacting with him or her, or if, on the contrary, you are trying too hard to make that relationship flow. Here you have to be careful with narcissists. Remember that narcissists tend to do everything you want to manipulate you. That is why these elements of compatibility are only a first stage so that you can define if that person is right for you. And the third characteristic you should pay attention to is whether there is mutual care and concern. If that person you are dating or testing compatibility status with genuinely cares about you, that person may have met the previous levels. That you like him physically and that there is complicity, but that he just wants to have fun with you. Don't worry him in the least. How can you define this? For example, if you have a problem, small at this stage of the relationship. If, for example, you cannot see them because you were stuck at work and the person understands you and even wishes you to be well, and it is not complicated but the fact that you couldn't attend the meeting or call him or her, you already know that you have someone who could potentially be your ideal partner. But there are people who, when faced with your difficulties, what do? Well, either they create a problem for you by getting upset with you, or they look for another person to be with. That is why it is so important that you can determine in the first weeks of the relationship the level of concern that person has regarding you. The idea is that you can do a process of introspection, think about the couples you had, and be able to define who met the three compatibility criteria that you have learned here. In the next section, we are going to work on the issue of defining whether your potential partner is going to make your life easier. I see you there.